For 2 decades, when you wanted to know something, you went to Google. You found a relevant web page through the search engine, and you clicked on it. This near monopoly on information access built one of the most profitable economic engines in history. That engine seemed unstoppable. Yet today, Google is being forced to deploy a new technology, generative AI, that is fundamentally engineered to break its core mechanism, a user's click on a web link. This isn't a voluntary upgrade. It's a forced reinvention of one of the most successful business models in history. A fight to build a new economic engine before the old one erodes. To understand Google's reinvention of itself, we need to deconstruct the machine piece by piece. We'll examine the original design of Google Search, the central role of a user's click, the AI threat that now confronts it, and the business paradox it creates. Let's unpack this. Google's business model is, at its core, an advertising business. In 2024, advertising accounted for over 75% of its parent company, Alphabet's total revenue. All other business segments, from cloud computing to self-driving cars, are funded by this massive advertising engine. But that massive engine wasn't the original plan. It was the result of first solving one of the most painful user problems of the early web. In the early days of the internet, finding information was chaotic. The web was a vast digital library without a card catalog. Early search engines existed, but their results were often irrelevant and easily manipulated. Google's breakthrough wasn't just indexing the web, it was ranking it. The PageRank algorithm introduced a simple, revolutionary idea. The most valuable pages were the ones most linked to by other valuable pages. Combined with a famously clean, minimalist interface, it delivered a user experience that was radically better than anything else. The result was mass adoption at an unprecedented scale. By the early 2010s, Google was already processing more than 1 trillion searches a year. Today, that number has grown to 5 trillion searches annually. To Google became a verb, and the platform became the undisputed entry point to the internet for billions of users, capturing 90% of the global search market. With this massive audience, Google then built its economic engine. And that engine has 2 distinct and critically different components. First, there's the crown jewel, advertising on Google properties. This is all the ad revenue generated on assets Google owns and controls directly, like Google.com, YouTube, and Google Maps. Here, companies bid on keywords, and Google runs a real-time auction, only getting paid when a user clicks. Because Google controls the entire experience and doesn't have to share revenue, this is the company's highest margin and most profitable business. Second, there's the Google network. This is the vast empire of third-party websites and apps that use Google's AdSense program to display ads. In this model, Google acts as a broker, placing ads from its inventory onto a publisher's property and taking a cut of the revenue. While this extends Google's reach across the entire web, the revenue-sharing agreement makes it an inherently lower-margin business built on a symbiotic relationship with the open web. And finally, Google protected this entire system with a formidable distribution moat. The company spends tens of billions of dollars a year on what it calls traffic acquisition costs. In 2024, for example, Google spent over $54 billion on traffic acquisition costs. A huge portion of this is paid to Apple just to ensure Google is the default search engine on the iPhone's Safari browser. It's a massive, ongoing investment to control the primary on-ramps to the internet, making it exceedingly difficult for any competitor to achieve comparable scale. This combination, a superior product, a 2-part advertising machine, and a multi-billion-dollar distribution moat, created a powerful, self-perpetuating flywheel that cemented Google's monopoly for 20 years, becoming the golden goose of the modern internet. By the way, understanding these foundational business models, how they're built, and where their vulnerabilities lie is the core of our analysis in the ARPU newsletter. We focus on deconstructing the why behind a company's success, not just the what. We'll leave a link in the description if you want to dive deeper. The ecosystem of Google Search runs on a single critical currency, the click. This currency is traded in a marketplace known as PPC, or pay per click. For advertisers, this model was a breakthrough. Unlike the passive banner ads of the early web, PPC allowed businesses to pay only for a direct action, a user's click, at the precise moment of their intent. This direct connection between a user's question and an advertiser's payment is what funded the fundamental bargain of the open web for 2 decades. Publishers and businesses provided the content, and in exchange, Google delivered the traffic. That traffic, the click from a user, is the primary way most websites make money, either through ads or direct sales. The strategic value of controlling the path to that click cannot be overstated. It's why Google pays Apple an estimated $20 billion a year for one single privilege, to be the default search engine in the Safari browser. That is the price of guaranteeing that when an iPhone user looks for something, their first click happens inside Google's ecosystem. It is a multi-billion-dollar investment in a single user action because that single action is the linchpin of the entire search business. But this entire economy is built on one fragile assumption that the user needs to leave Google to find their answer. Think of Google as a highly paid matchmaker. Its job is to introduce an interested user to a relevant business. The click is the handoff, the moment the user leaves Google's world and enters the advertiser's store. It's only after that handoff that the business can make a sale, and it's that successful introduction that Google gets paid for. The entire model breaks down if the user never leaves to meet the business. But what happens when an alternative machine is built that doesn't need the click at all? The machine threatening the click economy is not a single competitor, but a new class of technology, large language models, or LLMs. And the platforms built on them are not search engines, they are answer engines. The traditional Google model provides a list of links, requiring the user to do the final work of finding the answer. These new platforms are designed to eliminate that step entirely. The competitive landscape is rapidly taking shape around 3 key players. First, there's OpenAI's ChatGPT. Initially a chatbot, it has evolved into a powerful research tool. Its value lies in its conversational memory, allowing for complex, multi-turn dialogues that feel more like a human assistant than a search bar. Next, there's Perplexity AI. It has explicitly positioned itself as a conversational answer engine, with a core focus on accuracy, providing rigorous citations for its answers. And finally, there's Microsoft's Copilot. By integrating OpenAI's models directly into Bing, Microsoft has a compelling reason for users to switch. And because its business is highly diversified, it can be far more aggressive in its strategy than a company reliant on ad clicks. And this is what makes them so dangerous for Google. These challengers operate on a fundamentally different economic logic. They rely on subscriptions and freemium tiers, business models that reward them for providing the best possible answer, not for sending users away to another website. This creates the classic innovator's dilemma for Google. A startup like Perplexity can relentlessly pursue the perfect user experience, a direct, accurate answer without compromise. Google, in contrast, must perform a precarious balancing act. It has to give users the direct, AI-powered answers they now expect to keep them from leaving for competitors, while somehow preserving the revenue-generating clicks that have paid the bills for 2 decades. And the result of this balancing act is its own answer engine, AI Overviews. To understand the difference, think about the traditional Google search page. For 20 years, it was a list of 10 blue links. Google's role was that of a librarian. It found relevant web pages for you, but you still had to click on them and do the work of finding the answer yourself. AI overviews fundamentally change that role. Now, an AI-generated summary appears right at the top of the page, synthesizing information from multiple sources to give you a direct answer. Google is no longer just a librarian, it's acting as your personal research assistant, reading the sources. But this defensive move has a clear, measurable, and damaging impact on the click economy. An analysis from the marketing firm Ahrefs found that when an AI overview is present, the click-through rate for top results drops by 34.5%. Data from SimilarWeb is even starker. It shows that nearly 77% of all US Google searches that feature an AI overview now result in a zero-click search. On its face, this looks like a catastrophic success. A technology so effective, it's systematically dismantling the very economic transaction that has powered the open web for a generation. But Google's leadership argues this data only tells half the story. In a recent interview, Sundar Pichai argued that AI answers are causing users to search more. It's a bet that the loss of simple clicks will be replaced by a new wave of more valuable AI-driven engagement. Still, the fundamental transaction is being rewired. As Matthew Prince, the CEO of Cloudflare, stated plainly, robots don't click on ads. The click, the single action that powered a trillion-dollar industry for 2 decades, is no longer the inevitable endpoint of a search. For Google, this isn't just a new feature, it's a fundamental challenge to its entire business model. This creates the central paradox of Google's AI strategy. To save its core business, it may have to undermine the very ecosystem that supports it. Publicly, Google's leadership insists its new model is working. Executives have consistently claimed that search results with AI overviews monetize at the same rate as traditional search. Now, Google hasn't released the formula behind that metric, but based on how the product works and their own statements, we can make an educated guess at what this really means. This claim does not imply that the value or volume of clicks on traditional ads remains unchanged. Instead, it seems to suggest that for any given search, the combination of new ad formats and, crucially, increased user engagement within the AI overview environment compensates for the loss of revenue from traditional blue link ad clicks. Think of it this way. A traditional search might result in a single-page view with 4 potential ad clicks. An AI-powered session, however, might begin with a summary and only 2 ad slots, but then lead to 2 or 3 follow-up questions from the user, with each one generating a new set of ad impressions. Even if the chance of a click on any single ad is lower, the total number of ad interactions over this longer conversational session could be equal to or greater than the revenue from the old model. This allows Google to report a stable monetization rate, even as it fundamentally reduces the outbound clicks that publishers rely on. And the design of the new search page reveals a clear hierarchy of priorities. For high-intent commercial queries, research shows that Google Shopping ads are placed above the AI summary in 80% of cases. This is a calculated decision. It demonstrates that Google is prioritizing the protection of its most lucrative, high-conversion e-commerce ad formats. This comes at the direct expense of the informational content publishers who form the backbone of its lower-margin Google network business. This is the monetization paradox in action. Google's strategy effectively walls off and protects its high-margin revenue, but it does so by sacrificing the very publisher network that has fueled its growth for 2 decades. It's a fundamental shift, moving from a symbiotic partner that drives traffic across the open web to a more extractive platform that seeks to capture and contain user intent for its own direct monetization. Navigating the monetization paradox is Google's defensive strategy, but its long-term plan is an offensive one to fundamentally redefine search itself, transforming it from an information engine into an action engine. The goal isn't just to replace the value of the lost click, it's to create entirely new, more valuable commercial behaviors that are native to an AI-driven world. The first front in this new strategy is visual commerce.
Today, we are announcing a new initiative called Google Lens. Google Lens is a set of vision-based computing capabilities that can understand what you're looking at and help you take action based on that information. We'll ship it first in Google Assistant and Photos, and it'll come to other products.
Schindler, Google's chief business officer, highlighted that visual queries using Google Lens are already up 70% year over year. The next step is a new virtual try-on experience for clothing, a feature Schindler notes has shown extremely positive engagement, especially with Gen Z. This turns a simple search for a jacket into an immersive shopping experience. The second front is turning search from a research tool into a direct action tool. Schindler pointed to a new agentic capability that allows for AI-powered calling to local businesses directly from the search interface. This transforms a search for a plumber into a direct, monetizable lead, bypassing the need for a website click entirely. And this vision of an AI-powered action engine is an Alphabet-wide playbook. On YouTube, a new tool called Dream Screen is already using Google's Frontier VO model to let creators generate video from text prompts, turning an idea into a shareable asset in seconds. This is Google's offensive strategy. It is a bet that the future of search isn't about finding web pages, but about visual discovery, direct action, and instant creation. A new economy designed for a world where the click is no longer king. Google's plan to build a new search economy is ambitious, but it also faces a problem. The new business model can be vastly more expensive to operate than the old one, with a far less certain path to profitability. First, there's the cost. Serving an AI-powered query is significantly more computationally expensive than serving a simple page of links. Now, Google argues this concern is overstated, claiming that the cost to serve an AI-powered query has fallen dramatically thanks to Google's massive investment in custom AI chips. But this cost efficiency is being tested on a relatively small scale. As of today, AI overviews appear on only about 13% of search results. The critical question for the business is what happens to the cost structure when that number climbs to 30%. 50%, or even higher. Pichai himself has acknowledged a tight demand-supply environment for AI compute, signaling that the system is already under pressure, even at this limited scale. Second, there's the revenue model. The keyword auction was a near-perfect high-margin business. Replacing it with next-generation ad formats is a strategic gamble. As Frédéric Vallaès, a former Google advertising executive, stated bluntly, keywords are dead. Google's new commercial behaviors, virtual try-ons, agentic calls, are unproven at scale. And new data from SEMrush reveals the first phase of this transition. The report shows that Google is deploying AI overviews primarily on low-value informational queries, with 95% of them having no ads or an extremely low cost per click. This is a low-risk way for Google to test and perfect a new system. But the long-term gamble is that this answer engine model will eventually expand to cover the high-value commercial queries that form the bedrock of its auction business. Let's break down why this is so dangerous for the old model. Today, when you search for best running shoes, dozens of brands like Nike, Brooks, and New Balance bid against each other in an auction for that keyword. Their goal is to win your click and bring you to their website to make a sale. The entire multi-billion-dollar business is based on the value of that keyword auction. Now, imagine the future answer engine. You ask the same question, but instead of a list of links, the AI provides a detailed summary of the top 3 shoes for your needs, complete with reviews, price comparisons, and a Buy Now button that facilitates the purchase directly. In that world, the auction for the keyword best running shoes is effectively worthless. The user gets their answer and completes the transaction without ever needing to click on an ad for a specific brand's website. When the AI becomes the ultimate product reviewer and personal shopper, the traditional keyword that advertisers bid on becomes obsolete. Finally, there's the publisher ecosystem. The old model worked because millions of websites provided a constant stream of free, high-quality information for Google to index. But as Google's AI reduces traffic to these sites, it threatens to poison the well, starving the open web of the revenue it needs to create the very high-quality content that Google's future AI models depend on. As Danielle Coffey, president of the News Media Alliance, put it, "This is the definition of theft. They're making money on our content, and we get nothing in return." This creates a long-term strategic risk. If Google starves the open web of traffic, it could simultaneously starve its own future AI models of the very data they need to stay relevant. This is the monetization paradox. The new AI-driven search is more expensive to run, its revenue model is unproven, and it threatens to poison the well of data it depends on. This is the high wire act Google must now perform, balancing the immense costs of the future against the declining economics of the past. So, the reinvention of Google Search is the story of a company trading a near-perfect business model for a deeply uncertain one. The original model was built on a simple, stable trade-off. Users accepted relevant ads in exchange for free access to information. The new AI-driven model, however, is built on a series of much more risky strategic trade-offs. First, it trades monetization for user experience. By providing direct answers, it improves the product, but systematically destroys the click, the very action that generates revenue. Second, it trades efficiency for capability. It replaces the low-cost, high-margin business of serving links with the computationally expensive, high-cost business of running generative AI models. And third, it trades short-term platform control for long-term ecosystem health. By keeping users on its own page, it risks poisoning the well, starving the very publishers who create the high-quality data its AI needs to function. The entire future of Google's core business now rests on its ability to manage these 3 fundamental trade-offs. The question is no longer whether Google can innovate in AI, but whether it can afford the rising cost of its new walled garden moat, and whether that moat can survive if it starves the open web it was built to command. These trade-offs are not unique to Google. Every major tech company is now navigating a similar conflict between their legacy business models and the disruptive force of AI. How is Apple's hardware-first approach handling this shift? And how is Meta attempting to build an entirely new AI-native business from scratch? Deconstructing these kinds of strategic decisions is the core of our analysis in the ARPU newsletter. It's designed for anyone who wants to understand the why behind the headlines, not just the what. You can subscribe at the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.